pala yan. Ikaw yung magpa-kwan-kwan. Ay, wow!
Hello guys and welcome to our vlog. For today's video, we're going to discuss a chapter review from the book entitled Nature's Numbers by Ian Stewart. Now, let's go on to chapter 5 from Violins to Videos. This chapter deals with a case history of just such a development whose most powerful application is television, an invention that arguably has changed our world more than any. And it begins at the start of the 16th century with the problem of the vibrating violin string.
Although this may sound like a practical question, it was studied mainly as an exercise in the solution of differential equations. The work was not aimed at improving the quality of musical instruments.
So there are two distinct subdisciplines of mathematics, pure mathematics and applied mathematics.
Carl Friedrich Gauss was the one who called them number theory the queen of mathematics. He was also responsible in calculating the orbit of Ceres, the first asteroid to be discovered.
Gauss made some major innovation that has lived up until this day. He was also in charge of some developments in surveying, telegraphy, and understanding of magnetism.
In his time, getting a good grasp of mathematics was possible, but since now we live in an age of specialists where classical branches of science have grown so fast, it was unattainable.
The outside world wanted to presume that applied mathematics is the only useful part in mathematics.
One of the tasks of mathematical theory is to see whether the scenario holds good, and if it does, it is to work out the details such as the shape of the string that describes at any instant.
The later generation have realized that the frequency of vibration was to determine the pitch of the tone.
When the string is vibrating at its fundamental frequency, it is when only the end points are at rest. The more nodes, the more frequency. The nodes also represent as an integer.
Okay, so Brooke Taylor. He was the one who published the fundamental vibrational frequency of a violin string in terms of length, tension, and density.
So, John Leron Alambert, he was the one who showed that many vibrations of violin strings are not sinusoidal standing waves. He also validated that the instantaneous shape of wave can be anything you like.
Leonhard Euler, he worked out the wave equation for a string, not only did he formulate it, he also solved it. So the wave equation is the differential equation that governs the rate of change of the string.
We have rightward and leftward traveling wave. So the rightward traveling wave deforms the string in any shape you choose, then imagine that the chosen shape propagating along the string toward right. If we want to call it the leftward traveling wave, we can turn the chosen shape upside down and imagine it propagating the other way.
Next is Daniel Bernoulli. He also solved the wave equation, but with a different equation. According to him, the most general solution can be presented as a superposition of infinitely many sinusoidal waves.
Mathematical analysis works with an infinitely long curve. The only part of the curve that matters is the part between the two endpoints, which can be repeated periodically along a very long string without any essential change.
Partial differential equations, it involves not only rates of change relative to time, but also rates of change relative to space. The direction along the strings in mathematical language is it expresses the idea that the acceleration of each tiny segment of the string is proportional to the tensile forces acting upon that segment. So it is a consequence of Newton's law of motion.
Let's go back to Euler, 1759. He derived the wave equation, this one describing how the displacement of drum skin in the vertical direction varies over time. It looks much like the one-dimensional wave equation, but now there are spatial second order rates of change in two independent directions, as well as the temporal rate of change.
So boundary conditions, since violins have fixed ends, it determines which solutions to the wave equation are physically meaningful for the violin string.
Drums differ from violin strings not only in their dimensionality but also in their interpreting boundary. The boundary of a drum is a closed curve or circle.
The boundary of a drum is also fixed. The rest of the drum skin can move, but its rim is firmly stripped back. This also restricts the possible motion of the drum skin.
As the 18th century learned to solve the wave equation, it has become the most important mathematical formula ever devised. The equation began to show up everywhere. It showed up in fluid dynamics, where it described the formation and motion of water waves, in theories of sounds, where it describes the transmission of sound waves, vibration of the air, and in theories of electricity and magnetism, which changed human culture forever.
Next is William Gilbert. He described the Earth as a huge magnet and observed that electrically charged bodies can either attract or repel each other.
Benjamin Franklin proves that lightning is a form of electricity by flying a kite in a thunderstorm.
Yung Gigavani, who noticed the electrical sparks cause a dead frog leg's muscle to contract.
And Alessandro Volta, he was the one who invented the first battery.
Also, Michael Faraday, his constant need for new ideas turned him into one of the greatest experimental physicists of all time.
He spent 10 years trying to prove that conversely, a magnet could produce an electric current, and in 1831, he succeeded.
He also advanced the theory of electromagnetism. If you place a magnet under a sheet of paper and sprinkle iron fillings on top, they will line up along well-defined curves.
James Clerk Maxwell, he expressed Faraday's idea about lines of force in mathematical equation for magnetic and electrical fields, that is, this distribution of magnetic and electrical charge throughout space.
By 1864, he had refined his own theory down to a system of four differential equations that related changes in the magnetic field to changes in the electrical field.
Heinrich Hertz generated electromagnetic waves at the frequency that we now call radio and detected them experimentally.
And lastly, Guglielmo Marconi successfully carried out the first wireless telegraphy in 1895 and transmitted and received the first transatlantic radio signals in 1901.
The plain fact is that there is a clear historical thread beginning with violins and ending with videos.
Maybe on another planet, things would have happened differently, but that's how they happened to us. And maybe on another planet, things would not have happened differently, well, not very different.
No single person can claim credit for the invention of radio. It is mathematics that reveals the simplicities of nature and permits us to generalize from simple examples to the complexities of the real world.
It took many people from different areas of human activity to turn a mathematical insight into a useful product. Take your time to remember that without these mathematicians, none of these marvels would be invented.
That is all for this vlog. Thank you for watching.
Yun ang script, guys.
Dahil kung boy ka pa, magparasdap ka.
Si Crizziel, nakamute ka dahil, Criz.
Force in mathematical equation for mathematical.
Ay, ka-blush, wow! Pew, 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 pew.